Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to the Tech Leadership Lab's inaugural summit, where we explore the intersection of climate, AI, and humanity. In this summit, we aim to move the needle and start solving those SDGs sooner with a focus on climate. We are about to embark on the third and final day of this summit. My name is Maura, and I will be your host today. Let me tell you a bit more. We are gathered here, united by a shared mission to harness the power of technology, leadership, and collective wisdom in addressing the most pressing climate challenges of our time. In the face of unprecedented environmental concerns, this summit represents a beacon of hope, a call to action, and a testament to what we can achieve together. What if we already have the solutions and, with the help of AI, quantum tech, and other technologies, can find a way to implement them? Can we muster a common will and construct a shared narrative to unite us all in solving our existential problems? Or will we be overwhelmed by technology, causing an unprecedented crisis in human values? Each speaker and participant brings invaluable expertise and perspective that is crucial for gaining the answers needed to make a real impact. Tech Leadership Lab stands as an impact amplifier for all those building for the future, committed as an action-oriented think tank to pushing boundaries and influencing decision makers to act right away. This panel will provide valuable insights that will become part of a final consensus document, which will start being drafted during this panel today. We invite you to participate, share your views, ask questions, and help create a better future together, because it is time for action. So in the panel that we have prepared for you today, we will discuss the impact of our fast-paced technology evolving at an unprecedented exponential rate and the deep impact on our society and on us, human beings. How will we cope with exponential uncertainty? Some of you know the term VUCA. So what does this mean for the essence of being human? How do we navigate a society where AI emerges as the new superintelligence? Countless resources like money, time, and intelligence are invested in this pursuit. But we find ourselves facing the next big crisis as humanity, a crisis of meaning. What happens when we are no longer the smartest beings around, and when algorithms make our decisions for us? And what if work as we know it disappears? What impact will technology have on our mental health? Will further disruption of the climate inflict more trauma and stress on humanity? And what are the solutions for building resilient societies in this technological age? Can we go to a more human-centered technological development? And if so, what does it even mean to be human? Many questions to be explored today together in this coming hour. And I have a team of stellar speakers for you today. Before we continue, let's get to know them. So we have Lisa Atkinson, Dr. Brian Alman, Dr. Robin Rice, and Tim Lockie with us today. You're welcome to connect with them on their social media, preferably their LinkedIn accounts. And in the meantime, let me introduce a bit more about the panel today. So let's set the tone today with a quote. This one is by sociobiologist Edward Wilson. He once said, "We have the technology of gods and the brains of monkeys." This profound statement captures the essence of our existence. a profound discrepancy between our biological algorithms on the one hand and the exponential technological advancements that we've achieved on the other. It's not merely about the evolution of technology, but the evolution of our own minds. I want to go even further and posit that there has been no real innovation in human wisdom since the last 2000 years or more. And this results in dramatic choices when it comes to our vision of technology and the way we use it in society. We are now more than ever looking to learn from the wisdom of yogis, Egyptian culture, shamanism, or Taoism, and this is in contrast with the fast-paced exponential evolution of our technology at scale. So let's start looking at the problem with our panelists, first from a micro level, with a very clear example and an intervention from our first panelist, Tim. He has an excellent example to kick the conversation off with. He speaks about tech and mental health and relates it to climate change. From here, we will then start a broader philosophical debate, almost, I want to say, philosophical debate, on the profound impact that the unprecedented exponential evolution of technology has on us humans, on our companies, our society, and our planet and beyond. But first, let's listen to Tim.
Tim Lockie, I'm the CEO of the Humanized Tech, and I'm recording this right now because I am currently, at the moment, leading a workshop in Ghana. But I'm so passionate about what the Tech Leadership Lab is up to and wanted to participate in the summit, and especially around this panel of humans and tech and resilience and AI, which is all things I care about so much that I just asked if I could record something. And so fellow panelists, I'm sorry, I'm going to get all my words in now and take a little bit of extra time now, but then you can have all the rest of it because this is my one shot. So thank you for your patience. The area I'm speaking from is technology for nonprofits and NGOs. And I help nonprofits and NGOs use technology better. What I want to do is relate the work that I do with technology, nonprofits, to mental health and societal well-being. And so that's where I'm coming from on this. And the first thing to say is that NGOs and nonprofits really struggle with tech more than for-profit corporations or organizations. When I was a kid, I only listened to Christian music, even Christian rock and roll, which was a thing. And there was this one song that I loved called "Why Does the Devil Have All the Good Music?" Right? Which I don't even remember which band played that, but you can Google it and then let me know in the comments. Would love to see who it was. But I feel that way sometimes. Like, why do corporations have all the good tech? But the reality is that they don't. Nonprofits have just as good of tech as for-profit organizations. The thing that's different is how well they use that technology, right? How well they can coordinate around that technology. I'm not going to get into organizational dynamics on why it is harder for nonprofits. It just is. But one place that nonprofits can win and get ahead is that even for-profit organizations, the key to implementing new technology and being successful with it is all one relationship. At the center of every tech project, there's going to be an accountable person and a responsible person. If you look at my logo behind me, you can see a triangle at the top. That's like the accountability person. They kind of point the way and make decisions in the organization. And the bottom part of that with the two boots on the ground, that's the tactical techie. That's the responsible person. Now, we're so focused on individuals that what we miss is that the whole magic around success is not those two individuals. It is the relationship and the space they have to each other. It's their connection. That's the most important part. If they have an authentic and transparent relationship, the technology will eventually be fine. They'll have to figure it out. It'll get bumpy, but they will figure it out. So that's the first thing to say, is that relationships of authenticity and transparency and of accountability and responsibility are at the heart of success. The second thing is that these two people, accountability and and responsibility, they have very different experiences. When my mom and dad were leaving the hospital after having their first child, my older sister, my dad, we know this because it was such a bad move. So just word to the wise, do not do this. Do not say this. But my dad, when they were walking out, my dad like puts his arm around my mom and says, "That wasn't so bad, was it?" All right. Like they had completely unequal experiences at the hospital, right? I feel like it's easy for leaders to not understand how much disruption changes in technology make for the people that exist elsewhere in the organization that are responsible to use it. My daughter one time went on a trip when she was 6 years old and everything went wrong. Wrong plane, wrong destination, wrong luggage wasn't there. Everything was going wrong. And she held it together because her grandmother said, "When we get where we're going, I'm going to buy you chocolate ice cream." And when they got to the front of the line and they ordered chocolate ice cream, the man said, "We're out." And my daughter just fell to the ground, just a heap of tears. Because she had held out. She had a capacity to hold on to all of the changes that had happened, all of the disruption, until that one last thing, and that just put her over the edge. Humans respond negatively when they cross the line where disruption is greater than their capacity to handle that disruption. It's called change saturation. After that, if you keep the disruption high, it creates trauma. And the point here is that when it comes to mental health, there are lots of people that have been through technology implementations who have been very negatively affected in their mental health, creating tech trauma. And this is pretty much undiagnosed and not talked about. But this is really, that is a very hard reality for people to live with. And so we need to understand that high amounts of disruption create really hard situations and create mental health issues for people in organizations. I'm not even talking about, not sleeping because of TikTok and, the addiction mentality of developers and keeping people's mind engaged. I'm just talking about using tools to get actual good work done in the world can also create that kind of mental health issue. All right, the third thing I want to talk about is that belonging is the base code of the human stack. Humans are built to feel belonging. We can't just use the zeros and ones of the tech stack when it comes to getting users to use technology as intended. What we need to do is tap into what moves and what gives us our base code, which is belonging and meaning. People feel ashamed when they can't use tech well. It's really interesting. People come up to me all the time, and when they find out what I do, they apologize for not using tech. I'm like, I don't care. Like, it's no big deal. So I absolve them of their tech sins and send them on their way because I don't really care, but they do because there's so much shame around this. And for a lot of nonprofits, when that responsibility and accountability starts to fall apart, things that need to be performance related. We've got to get this work done because we need to create climate change right now. We need it fast. And we don't have time for nonprofit organizations involved in climate change to not use their tools well. And so we need that kind of accountability. And the last thing I'll say on this is that nonprofits and climate nonprofits are the same way. Nonprofits do not have tech adoption issues. They have tech accountability issues. If you have organizations adopting, that's the problem, because that's when you bring a kid in and they become part of your family, and there isn't a family at a nonprofit. Now, you might be close, but this is a nonprofit is out to get work done in the world, is out to accomplish and perform things that need to happen, impact that needs to be created. And so adoption is not the right word. The idea here needs to be something like, if you're on an Olympic team, there's accountability. If you can't run fast enough, if you can't, I'm suddenly forgetting everything you do in the Olympics, like fence fast enough. I don't know what you do with fencing. Anyway, if you're not good enough to be on the team, you get cut because that's accountability, because the team's accomplishing something. That's the way we need our climate nonprofits to be. We need them to be using tech really, really well and to actually be creating an impact in the world. And we can't get there if they don't raise money with their tech, and if they're not using AI well and beneficially and responsibly, and if they're not measuring the impact that they're having in climate change, then they're not doing the thing we need them to do, which is to actually move the needle on climate change. Okay, thank you. I know I took some extra time. I hope that that's okay. Thank you, panelists. Sorry I couldn't be here in person. Would love to hear from you. If you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me at Tim Lockie or the Human Stack on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Awesome intervention from Tim. There is so much to unpack in what he has said. So much gems have been dropped. It's beautiful. And I have a ton of questions for you, dear panelists. What really stood out to me in what Tim said was something profound that affects us all as human beings, that mental health trauma can really be caused by high amounts of disruption, and especially technological disruption, which leads then to all sorts of disruption in our societies and for the planet. So my next question would be directed to Lisa. Lisa, warm welcome to you. I would love to ask you a follow-up question, because it really ties into what Tim spoke about, and we're going to unravel this more and more on a more philosophical level, let's say. Before you answer the question that I'm going to ask you, feel free to share a few words about yourself, which you deem relevant to our audience, and tell people how they can best connect with you. So the question for you is, how can we make these technological developments, which are so fast-paced and exponential, more ethical, more human-centric, let's say, and how does it all tie in with our mental health? Lisa, the mic is yours.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very grateful to be here today. I have not talked in public about climate change since 2006. What's relevant for today is my biggest influences. It's hard to introduce yourself in a couple of seconds, so I'm not going to even do that. But I am going to talk about what's influenced my humanity. And so my first influence would obviously be my ancestors and the family I was born into, that lineage. And the territory I was born on was the Algonquin Nation in Northeast Canada. So that was very influential. And I started working with AI in the late 1970s, early 1980s. We were using them for the original games. And at that point, we had, another company, a third party, they didn't call it that back then, but another series of buildings belonging to yet another company, because I was in the design artist aspect of it. But we had buildings and buildings and buildings that we had subcontracted that were full of computers who were processing my one drawing that took 3 months for them to input into the computers with a big S on the end of it. And that's where AI originally was invented as an information and communication software. And it still is. It's just a lot of people talk about tech who aren't technologists. So maybe I'll insert a few things today. It took until recently for people to even talk about AI. So part of human and humanity is our timeline of consciousness. And that is very much connected to our mental health. Each individual one of us is in charge of our own mental health and our own self-leadership. But that also includes what we consider attractive regarding information that's out there. What technology has been developed and is being developed that's out there. For instance, the first satellite to use AI and solar cells was launched in 1958. But it wasn't until 2007 that solar cells even entered into the conversation with humanity. So one of the things I did, I took a sabbatical from the film industry, which had the deep pockets for the last 40 years to spend gazillions of dollars on using AI and developing new techs, everything from neural networks and neuromorphic networks and neuromorphic computing to liquid neurocomputing to liquid neural networks. Those are more the new end that hasn't really entered into the human global conversation yet. But, historically, Hollywood had the deepest pockets. Here in California, even though I'm Canadian, I live in LA, and here in California, at that time in the 80s particularly, if I wanted to put technology together to do visual effects and animation on movies and TV shows, I literally walked over to UCLA and talked to the medical department, because the other industry that had the pockets was the medicine at the university level. I walked over to JPL in the aerospace industry, which is also very big in LA, and talked to them about how they were using their tech. And we borrowed from each other. Then I got on a plane and went to Japan, because they were the only ones who had cracked how to get film into computers. They developed scanning systems. All of this came from our imaginations. So some people everybody has imagination. We're born with it. Everybody has creativity. We're born with it. As far as my ancestry, which includes everybody, because I think we're all cousins, I think we were born with the brains of gods, and we're using the technology of monkeys. And so depending on someone's personal radar, they're going to have their perception either focused on technology and its evolutionary history and how everyone's adopted it for their own personal living, their own personal existence. And yes, some people are early adopters, like I mentioned with AI and even solar cells, and some people aren't. But to get to the point, when I co-founded and was the Chief Technology and Compliance and Ethical Officer for the first fund on the planet for climate change and carbon reduction technology, that was 2004. And it took us several years. We couldn't do it in the US, we couldn't do it in the UK. We did it we couldn't do it in Canada, we couldn't do it in the US, we did it in the UK. It took us several years to educate the stock exchange of London what climate change was and what climate change technology was, because up till that point, the only thing on the stock markets were you can invest in oil and gas. And since the world revolves around our money and we vote with our money, it seemed like it was not a true representation, authentic representation of our potential and possibility and what was in our hearts regarding the vision we had for the planet. So well-being isn't just my personal well-being or my family's well-being or my community's well-being or my city's well-being or my country's well-being, but it's also the well-being of our systems that we have in place and the well-being of the technologies and how we use it, like the previous speaker said. And what I noticed, to wrap this point up and how it ties into health and mental well-being, is when I wrote the compliance documents to be able to list an IPO on a stock exchange. Now, like I said, I was coming from a film industry background, an artist background, but I had my First Nations deep learning, and I had my treaty history, which I recommend everybody study at university or high schools or middle schools or primary schools, understand the indigenous history of the territory you're currently living on or were born on. When I had that, there was no language, because we were the first climate change sustainable fund ever on the planet. So I turned to my ancestors, I turned to the language of the indigenous people on this planet, and came up with carbon footprint, sustainability, and lots of wonderful words, and put those all in the document, try to make sense of it, use my ethics, my value system, my justice system. We tried to incorporate that as well. We made a point of being the first fund ever in the world to say, we're not going to take these super giant, huge management payouts. we're actually going to get paid the same as a dock worker or a truck driver. So we wanted to embody our value system and also choose the technologies that embodied our value system and make that kind of change by, being the change you want to see in the world. Big Gandhi followers. So when I witnessed, to tie it all up, what I witnessed as the press took these words and interpreted them the best that they could, tried to understand the technology as best as they could, tried to understand the ethics and humanity and the mental well-being and the intention and the consciousness behind what we were doing. I saw my words go out in the world and be adopted by everybody according to their own personal value system. And it was not the same for everybody. I saw them being adopted over the last 10, 20 years now, and used for people's advantage, and also used for people's lifting themselves up and increasing their consciousness and comprehension, their global citizenship. But my takeaway, converting my experience into wisdom, which I've been doing privately the last couple of decades, which is why I haven't been speaking publicly. The wisdom I've discerned from these experiences and witnessing and observing what people do with words and pictures, and technology and imagery is they let their imaginations go to wherever their mental health is. And so if somebody is letting their fear drive them, then they're going to interpret what other people are doing, something beyond their control, which is what other people are doing, or something unknown, fear of the unknown. They're going to interpret it through a fear-based matrix consciousness. If somebody is very imaginative and they understand the future is where you imagine what hasn't happened yet, and the present time is where you're actually living it, and the past has already happened, it's over with, it's already converting into wisdom, hopefully. People discern and people develop and people interact their entire lives with their own mental health, which is totally about themselves. And whether they're willing to lead and whether they're willing to cultivate their own perception of reality. And so I'll leave it at that because I think I've talked too long.
No, I think we loved listening to you, Lisa. We've promised a lot of wisdom today, and I think you've delivered wisdom galore. Thank you so much for that. I saw Dr. Robin Rise resonate heavily with your words, and I guess many people, including myself, and surely Brian did as well. Now, your words actually remind me a bit of the wisdom of Lewis Mumford. He spoke of the living together of unlike organisms in a symbiosis. And we humans are like ecosystems, grounded in our DNA-based computational organisms, and we are evolving organically per definition. But on the other side, we have AI and other technologies, which are systems free from these constraints, evolving exponentially and at an unprecedented scale. And I think the misalignment in speed and scale between human and AI ecosystems raise significant questions here. And maybe this is the fundamental gap our societies of the future will need to bridge. So I'm looking at you, Brian, for my next question. I would love to ask you to use your imagination and imagine a society of the future where climate, AI, and humanity intersect and share this vision that you have with us. Of course, just like Lisa, I will ask you to briefly introduce yourself and tell our audience how they can best connect with you on which social media. The mic is yours, Brian.
Interesting, Lisa, and it definitely connects with what I'm about to share. My name is Dr. Brian Alman. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or at truesage.com. And I am the founder of the ACE treatment solution out of Kaiser Permanente and my collaborator, Dr. Vincent Felitti. And ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And basically, we added positive childhood experiences so that people could get the whole story of their lives and the impact years and decades later. So the bridge between what Tim was saying and what Lisa was saying is that we learned with human beings, individuals, us, that our past life experiences, years, decades ago, are impacting us now and will continue impacting us in the future, even the far, far future. So when we learned, much of what we learned were big surprises. We thought we were doing really great work, getting great results, and specifically in the area of weight loss and all the addictions, we were able to help people lose a tremendous amount of weight, 100 pounds in a year, and thought, wow, we are just doing things no one else can do. This is amazing. And then we realized what probably you already realized before us is that most of the people gained all the way back or even more. So how could we help them that much, feel so great about it, and then see them go backwards? Because what we learned, which is really counterintuitive, and I don't think very many people even understand this now, is that all addictions, including food, are as much a solution as they are a problem. So every addiction you can think of that you have, your family has, you see in society, you read about in mental health all the time, if you just take away the solution, like the drugs or the food, you help people lose weight, you just get them to stop drinking, you're actually removing their subconscious solution to resolving or dealing with the underlying issue that we now call adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, experiences we had years, decades ago that were still self-medicating, self-treating. And everybody knows that with being overweight, well, you're going to get diabetes. I know, but it helps me feel better now. And everybody knows with smoking, you know what's going to happen. You know what happens to people who smoke too much? They get lung cancer. I know, but that's 20, 30 years from now. I'll worry about that in the future. Right now, I need the stress management, the anger management, the anxiety management, and it helps me within 30 seconds because the chemical benefits of the cigarette, like the drinking, like the food, is very calming. It's very soothing. So the surprise was that when Dr. Felitti and I were collaborating, even before the ACE study, I was seeing the high utilizers at Kaiser, the people that went to the doctors a lot and tended to just need to go to doctors a lot and didn't get better. And everybody knows that when somebody doesn't feel good, they go to the doctor and the doctor says, what's wrong? And what we've learned from a really interesting study at Kaiser and at Harvard and CDC supported is that 4 out of 5 visits to the medical doctor is stress related or anxiety related. And very rarely does the person's story come up because the approach in medicine for the last 100 years has been biomedical. What's going on biologically, because that's what's going on medically. What we learned, one of the big surprises, is that we developed and are using now in our new app what's called a biopsychosocial assessment. And we've given this to over 500,000 people. We have a study with over 135,000 people. So it's not anecdotal. It's not just, 50 people, a few hundred people. Very large study, probably the largest study that's been done, certainly in mental health. I don't know about other areas, but there's not very many studies with 135,000 people. And what we found was exactly what we're talking about now, is that our past impact our present and future health. Yes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, autoimmune disease, depression, of course, anxiety, and all of the mental health issues, but not just mental health, biological, relationship, sociological. So what Lisa was saying about the importance of the individual, so essential. Because we, in the success of the program, we thought we're helping people. How could they gain all the way back? Because we didn't get to helping them resolve the underlying issue. I'll give you one very clear example, that in all the weight loss programs in the world, and all of the new drugs that are coming out that are the miracle weight loss drugs, and all the eat less, exercise more, and all the food, all the programs, nobody asks the question that we learned to ask. And by the way, our teachers, Dr. Fletty and my teachers, were the participants, the patients, the members, the people. They taught us, ask questions. Don't just teach us didactic information. Every overweight person knows what they should eat for breakfast. It's not a lack of information. Ask us questions about our life or about our story. But the question that nobody asks, and we learned to ask, and now we ask it all the time with everybody, at what age did you first start to gain weight? Why then? Why not 2 years earlier or 5 years later? What was happening in your life at the time? And then just listen. Listen with acceptance. And this is a very important point. Listen with unconditional acceptance. So no interruptions, no buts, no me toos, just really listening. So people got to tell their stories. And this had a tremendous impact. For example, in the study with 135,000 people, answering the biopsychosocial assessment questions, then asking that one question, I see on the assessment that you had a traumatic experience when you were a teenager, whether it was sexual abuse or divorce in the family or whatever it was, whatever the adverse childhood experience was. What impact did that have on your life since? And then people got to speak and be unconditionally accepted. That alone created a 35% reduction in medical visits the following year, an 11% reduction in emergency room visits. So we're talking about a $2 billion savings in 1 year for the healthcare provider, which is very significant. One of the reasons Dr. Flay and I continue to utilize that biopsychosocial assessment, have it free on the internet for anybody in the world to take. And we have the treatment solutions from the ACE study, which is in the app. The app is called Enlighten. And it's called Enlighten because doing all the ACE work, doing all the treatment solutions, writing 14 books during this time, I was invited to India to teach meditators how to go deeper into meditation with these techniques that we're using now in the weight loss program and in the addictions program and the mental health program and in the medical departments. And that was surprising because I wasn't sure if I could really teach people that have been meditating for decades how to go deeper into meditation, but somehow people have read my books and they thought it would work and they practiced it and liked it. So I went there. And my goal in going, besides wanting to teach people how to go deeper into meditation, basically utilizing their unconscious inner resources that we're using in the ACE treatment solutions, and that's now in the app. And so I'm there to teach the treatment solutions. They're 5 minutes, they're simple, they're clinically proven, they're fun, they're empowering, and they do help you go deeper, whether it's yoga, mindfulness, meditation. But I wanted to see if anybody was enlightened. That was my goal, because in learning and teaching all these techniques, I could feel enlightened for about 15 minutes, just in a great place. Oh my God, I'm so zen. My kids aren't even bothering me right now. I'm not even concerned about business. Everything's good. Wow. And then, within 10, 15 minutes, I kind of lost it. The kids fighting or the phone's ringing. I'm going to go somewhere. But I want to know if anybody could be enlightened all the time. So I traveled around, I taught at ashrams, had an amazing time. People loved what they were learning. It was really great. And I'm wondering if any of these gurus are enlightened all the time, not just 15 minutes or an hour. And I met wonderful women, brilliant, wonderful men, brilliant. And I didn't really meet anybody that I felt was enlightened because, if the books were late or the lighting didn't work or somehow the problems with the participants, whatever it was, I didn't see anybody that could hold it all together all the time. So I came back, I did videos, I wrote books about it, all of that. And people said, oh, well, you didn't meet my guru. I'm like, oh my goodness, I just spent 2 months there traveling all around. Yeah, I think I met everybody. No. So I went back to see their guru, see if anybody was enlightened. So the last person, when I'm on my way back, because I hadn't really met anybody yet, the last guru said to me, well, what do you think enlightenment is? And I said, well, it's like people that are transcendent, above it all. Nothing bothers them. They're totally in the moment. They're alive and well. They're amazing. And they just feel great all the time, no matter what. And he said, no. Oh, my goodness. All these trips, all that traveling around. Oh, my goodness. I had the wrong definition. Now, what do I do? Again, another surprise like we had in the ACE study. We thought we were helping people be successful and then gained it all back. Okay, what is it? So he said to me, enlightenment is unconditional acceptance of yourself. And I thought, oh, well, that's what we're teaching in the app. That's what we teach at Kaiser. That's what I do with my clients. We're teaching unconditional acceptance of yourself. We said, that's what it is. Keep teaching that. Oh. So we renamed the app Enlighten, ENLIGHTN, because it's not really about enlightenment the way I thought it was, the way most of us. It's about unconditional acceptance of yourself. And to Lisa's point, the individual, that's a breakthrough. It's a breakthrough in the ACE, like you heard, 35% reduction in medical. There's $2 billion savings in 1 year. Most importantly, people are getting better, feeling healthier, doing better at home, in their lives, their mental health, their physical health. Amazing improvements. We've been doing that ever since. So that's to the individual, Lisa, how relevant what you were saying is, because that was our big lesson. I mean, it took a few decades for us to get to that, but here we are. And so that's what Dr. Folletti and I is still doing, Maura. We're still working on the treatment solutions. We've added the positive childhood experiences. Now we have our 3 decades of work in the app. And we know that the past impacts the present and the future, whether it's AI, climate. We have to be really cognizant of who we've been, who we are, who we're becoming, sort of past, present, future, far, far future. And that's what we're up to. And we're still working on it all the time. And we've been at it a long time, but we're still learning, because we learn something new with every single person that we collaborate with, including today. So that's the story, Maura.
Fantastic. I am almost speechless, but it's not my role to be speechless, so I am not allowed to to be without words. But yes, applause to you, Brian. What a stellar panel we have here today. It is it's really beautiful what Christina managed to put together in just a couple of weeks' time. It's absolutely amazing. I remember from everything you said, Brian, that dealing with the root cause of any issue is absolutely key. I also loved how you said enlightenment is unconditional acceptance of yourself. And I guess the only thing that's left for us as humans is our intuition, our nature, the ultimate spiritual journey within, which connects us to our biochemical nature. And only in this way will we be able to connect in a meaningful way to self and to others. Think about attending a live concert, for example, the ritual of enjoying sound together, resonating to the music in a group setting. There's something about connecting to the group which amplifies the experience for the individual and transforms it into something epically spiritual, I want to say. Now imagine technology will be able to offer us this exact experience. Does it imply that we will all live in our basements like the people in the movie The Matrix, perfectly happy and cared for? How fundamentally different will our societies be then? I think it's important to be aware of the fact that we are in the early stages of a transition phase between monkey and avatar, like we said a couple of times here. And only by traveling the path of the journey within, respecting the fractal nature of the universe, will we be able to keep touch with what really matters, which is our human nature, even though we might have to redefine fundamentally what it means to be human. And I think the system of spiral dynamics, which is based on very simple yet human-centric principles, offers a beautiful way in. But this is maybe for later. This all ties into some wisdom that will be shared by Robin right now. So warm welcome to you, Robin. Before you answer the question I have for you, same thing, please feel free to share a few words about yourself that you deem relevant for this summit, and tell the people in the audience how they can best connect with you. I also know that the Tech Leadership Lab team is sharing the LinkedIn profiles of all the speakers in the YouTube chat as we speak. So look out for that. And now to you, Robin, my question to you, having heard all of this wisdom here, what do you think is the impact of overvaluing thinking over feeling and putting some artificial principles above our own humanity? The mic is yours.
An esteemed panel, and so many topics that are so central to my heart have already been talked about. One of them being the idea that it's just one size fits one for each of us, and that we all have our own unique journey with technology and climate, but mostly our own unique experience within ourselves. So what Dr. Alman was talking about, I was part of that group at Kaiser in the very beginning, long time ago, of the ACEs study. And it was so eye-opening for the clients, everybody who came to Kaiser, to really open up that understanding of how our childhood, how our past impacts us. So building on that, and my interest in neuroscience and how we have to understand how the brain works first to begin to apply technology in a way that's useful for humans. And I think we've overvalued the cognitive, the intelligence piece, and underestimated the unconscious, subconscious, emotional systems that technology cannot possibly begin to emulate. And within that, there's so many confounding factors for us about how do we truly connect with another human being? How do we truly understand another human being in a way that brings us closeness and attachment and love and safety that will inform, because it does, our DNA expression, not just ours, but for future generations. We have to understand the humanity. And I think it was Maura that you brought up the soul piece of this, the heart piece of this, because those are the pieces going forward that will impact all of us, all of society. And it's not just intelligence. So when we talk about AI, we're talking about intelligence, the classic form of intelligence. And there's so many more intelligences that we need to start to integrate and understand to bring humanity to a place where we all feel safe and taken care of and loved. And we use the technology as a tool, much like Lisa said. I could not agree more that we have the brains of gods and the technology of monkeys. So I realized I jumped in without saying who I am, but you can find me on LinkedIn.
Wow, beautiful, Lisa. That is a nugget of wisdom right there. So we don't have much time left. I want to be mindful. We are coming to the top of the hour, 10 more minutes here. What will happen next? So we have 10 more minutes to have a free-flowing conversation between us. What will happen next is we will take a 15-minute break, and after the break we will be back because we have a ton of comments in the chat on YouTube, and I'm sure a lot of people are curious to pick your brains, your brilliant brains, about all this wisdom that you've been sharing with us here today, dear speakers. So my next question, which is actually almost necessary, I want to say. I just want to know what you, dear speakers, think of being human. Very, very simply put, in a world where technology is more and more important, in a very fast-paced world where everything is exponential and maybe not really at a human scale, what is the unique essence that makes us unmistakably human in your eyes? I want to end the panel with this. So free-flowing, who wants to chime in first?
Oh, we have to unmute. Thanks, everybody. It's a wonderful panel. I'm glad that you opened up the definition of enlightenment, because our ancestors have written and plays and poems and songs and entire libraries, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Even before religion. What I'm always saying, because I've been talking a lot on AI panels this year, is our first technology was medicine, and learning to take care of ourselves and what well-being is, and this suit that you have to wear, biological organic suit that you have to wear on planet Earth to have this particular experience. It's all based on your own personal caretaking. So what it means to be human, or what do I value in my humanity? So many things. One is my ability to convert my experience into wisdom and my willingness to do that. The second thing I value is curiosity. And so I took a couple sabbaticals from the film industry. One was to travel around the world, backpack around the world. I ended up in China, which was the plan. Protests were breaking out, which then went into 4 years of martial law and lockdown. And when I arrived in China, people asked me, please stay. So I was offered a job at the Canadian Embassy. And I ended up spending my time traveling around China, Mongolia, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all the countries that share borders with China, Tibet, Nepal, blah, 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 blah. And learned the language, learned to speak and read and write Mandarin. And because I wanted to communicate with people. And so I got to see people still living in caves. I got to all around the world, not just China. I don't want to isolate that. I saw people living very happily in caves with, basics. I saw people, as I lived in China the next 10 years, I saw us go from ration coupons and shower coupons, once a week showers, and ration coupons to buy, flour and salt and eggs and sugar, the basics. evolve with no TVs to flat screen, no phones to phones and satellite hookup. So they didn't have to go through the evolution that we did in North America. All that money, all that digging up of the earth, laying cable, all that garbage dumps full of technology that was replaced as rapidly as it was made, and all these consumer goods that really aren't necessary for life. China got to bypass that. But I also had that experience in Africa. So for me to say what makes up my humanity, which be another way of answering the question, is my ability to be curious and observe everybody with no judgment, with no hierarchy, more than inclusiveness. And what I love about this panel is we're all speaking from our direct personal experience. We're not theorizing, or, we live in the age of opinion, and there's so many panels that, even though I haven't been speaking until recently, I have watched panels, and there's so much postulation and speculation that is put out there in podcasts on YouTube and panels. And I love this fact that we're speaking from our own personal direct experience. And so if we open up what humanity is to me, what my humanity is to me, I'd say it would be really narrow if I didn't include observing other people's humanity without judgment, and seeing everybody as part of my global family. And I don't mean that as a concept. I mean that as like when I worked in several conflict zones, and people always tried to give me a gun. And I said, sorry, I'm not here in this lifetime to kill anyone. I don't really need a gun. I'm going to use my own energy, my own imagination, my own consciousness to transform any situation I'm being placed in. And so I appeal to the humanity in the current situation that I was co-manifesting. And so to answer that question, it's not just my humanity that I'm experiencing in this lifetime, it's everybody's humanity. And I do my best to embody the wisdom that I'm transforming every 24-hour cycle as I go through this journey, and have an open heart and an open mind. And of course, what always surprises me is there's always more.
Wow.
And the big thing, sorry, I know you need to go on for the break, but the big thing there is, remember that the future hasn't happened yet. So we're not living the past as the future. We're actually imagining the future, and then it pours in through our presence to become the present. We're actually living the result of our choices, which is the ancient Sanskrit language. The word destiny means living the result of your choices. Living the future you can imagine for yourself.
Absolutely beautiful. Lisa, thank you so much. Yes, we only have 5 minutes left. So, Dr. Robin Rice, the mic is yours. What does it mean to you to be human?
Oh, I often wonder how to answer that question. The easiest answer I can ever come up with is that sense of love for I think you used the word fractal, everything on this planet. It's what connects all of us. The space between is what matters. So the love and acceptance of the other, of all living things on this planet, everything that vibrates, is what brings us together into one unified field. The felt sense is what matters. And I also want to add that I think it's the felt sense of self, not the knowing, but the felt sense, the soul level, knowing and loving who you are so that you're sharing that with everyone else. And in my world, if I could optimize everybody to get to that place of understanding that what you bring to this world is perfect, that you're not broken, that this gift you can share, the present that you share, is really truly knowing yourself, the enlightenment piece that Dr. Alman talked about, that you are fully unconditioned loving of yourself and you share it with other people, not what you know, who you are.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Robin, for these wise words. And last but not least, Dr. Brian Alman, you get the last word before the break. What does it mean to be human?
And one of the things that we learned in all of our wonderful experiences with amazing teachers, now millions of people, is to ask intelligent questions. And to Robin's point, given that love is the most powerful force in the world, being able to ask ourselves, how friendly, caring, and compassionate am I being right now? Because friendly, caring, and compassionate is what love is. So to Robin's point, how loving am I being right now? How friendly, caring, and compassionate am I being right now? Am I looking up to my fellow person to understand them? Am I really being present, observing, and listening to what is happening right here, right now? So supporting what Robin said and really appreciating that. And what Lisa brought in too, about, it really is ourselves that we project out into the world and create our futures. And I know Robin and Lisa both agree on that. So we do have a future. The future comes, and let's all remember to ask ourselves, how friendly, caring, and compassionate am I being right now? Because that's the answer to how loving am I being right now. And of course, all relationships are reciprocal. So we give, we receive. We usually receive more than we give. And giving that love, it comes back to us.
Again, extremely wise and beautiful words. Thank you so much, Brian, for that. We are hitting the top of the hour. We are just 1 minute over time. Great job, panel. So we are going to take a short break, 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, I will see you all again here because we have so much beautiful questions in the chat. And we will be answering them ASAP. So for now, I want to thank you so much, Dr. Robin Rice, Lisa Atkinson, and Dr. Brian Alman for your beautiful, I'm again speechless, beautiful words of wisdom shared here with us today. We are honored to have you join this Humanized Tech panel at the intersection of climate, AI, and humanity. You are watching the beautiful Tech Leadership Lab Summit, and we will be back in 15 minutes. Hello, everyone. We are back live. Welcome again. After a short break, we are back in the Humanized Tech panel at this Tech Leadership Lab Summit. We are exploring the intersection of climate, AI, and humanity. So what I'm taking from this first hour is that the change is not solely in the realm of technology. It is in our humanity itself. We are embarking on a grassroots movement, a transformation of consciousness. It's a movement that transcends the boundaries of science and technology, and it's driven by the recognition of our innate potential as human beings. So we did get a lot of questions in the chat. Thank you so much to all of you in the audience for supporting us. We will start with the first question, which was directed to Lisa. Lisa was our first speaker in the first hour. So Lisa, this question is for you. Someone is asking what lessons from the past could help us navigate today's exceptional growth in a way that considers both humanity and urgency. The mic is yours.
Thanks for reminding me to turn it on. Well, our ancestors left behind a tremendous amount of wisdom, from their collective experience and individual experience. And so one of the things that I do in my spare time is I study medicine, first indigenous medicine where I grew up. And then when I was in China for 10 years, I studied Chinese medicine. Then the last 6 years, Tibetan medicine, India medicine. And one of the things I've learned is that our ancestors knew a lot more than we give them credit for. And they went through a lot more than we realize. And so these books, these poems, these songs, these medical books, these astrology books, because this wisdom in many, many, many cultures, Africa, people don't talk about Africa enough, Africa, North Africa, the Asian continents, where the central populations were, South America, the island nations, they have a wealth of wisdom gathered from the experience that they individually and collectively went through. And if a person prioritizes their self-cultivation, their willingness to be open to other people's points of view, that we are living out some of the choices that our ancestors made. And our DNA, of course, is a liquid neural net of memory, very much stored in our water. There's so much information that you can say, you can see I'm trying to how to answer that question. There's so much out there, and you get to choose what feels authentic to you. You get to feel, using what Robin said, you get to feel what is important to you. You're the one that crafts your 24-hour cycle, including, what you imagine while you're falling asleep at night, and alter your states and move your consciousness out so that your body can do its regenerative cycle. And also you're the one that greets, your reentry in the morning when you're waking yourself up and pouring your consciousness back into the body and starting to live this, physical experience for a few hours every 24-hour cycle. I think the quickest, shortest answer would be our ancestors knew a lot about where the heck we go when we alter our state and move our consciousness out of our body, and our body regenerates at night, and we're somewhere else. Our consciousness is somewhere else doing something else. There's a multi-dimensional, multi-planes of existence. And most technologists that I know, bringing it back around, they are people who work in teams, because you can't invent technology on your own. They're using their imagination. And a lot of them learn not just computing languages, but languages of the ancient cultures, or they come from cultures where they speak ancient languages. And very much every technology we've ever imagined into being on this planet is based on the human mind, body, and spirit. That's our inspiration, always. Liquid neural nets, neuromorphic computing, spatial dynamics, spatial relationships, self-revelatory insightfulness, which is the original authentic intelligence. AI also stands for authentic intelligence, not just artificial. So the key is not taking yourself for granted, so that you're not just walking unconsciously on this earth, but anything you choose to bring in to your suit through your sensory abilities, whether it's sight or smell or taste or touch or feeling, or future as far as precognitively, premonitionally, or any kind of creative work that you do, imagining your future, whatever you're going to bring into the suit so that you experience it during your eyes are open period of time during the 24-hour cycle. Use yourself as the central, most important figure in your life. your self-leadership abilities, because you are crafting, no matter what your DNA is, no matter what your ancestral trauma is, or there will be the data in you, not just of the trauma, but also the wisdom of your ancestors overcoming the trauma. Or if they didn't, if your grandparents or great-great-grandparents didn't overcome their particular earth experiences, you still can transform those memories simply through leading, by being present and putting yourself on the throne, as the centralmost figure of your life, so that you are navigating. You're the driver in the driver's seat, foot on the brake, foot on the gas, foot on the steering wheel, looking at the road straight ahead. You're taking in, with that understanding that what other people have been through is what other people have been through. It's not what you've been through. And so there's the sense of putting yourself first, putting the oxygen mask on yourself first, which includes intaking and interpreting all that data that's out in the liquid neuronet called space. It's there for you to discern, but not mimic, but to be individually crafting your own personal experience, which is, you can't escape that, actually. It's by design. But where people end up generating additional trauma for themselves or suffering is when they give up their seat of authority within themselves, and they try to mimic someone they have perceived is smarter than them, or kinder than them, or nicer than them. And that kind of judgment system will create a deficit in your energetic network, where you will feel de-energized by that thought stream, by that belief system. So if you can spend part of your 24-hour day reading your energy levels and being cognizant that you generate your own energy through what you eat, what you drink, and what you breathe. We don't generate energy through sleep. That's a regeneration stage. We use up our energy at night. We actually generate energy for our body, our mind, during the day through what we eat, what we drink, and what we breathe. And so paying attention to caretaking of yourself, your own personal well-being, it will balance your perception of reality. It will balance your chemistry. So our ancestors talked a lot about how your chemistry was created in futuristically while you're imagining what you want to do but you haven't done yet, what you're pouring into your suit and then manifests in the physical realm as your presence and your present time that you're experiencing. Our ancestors knew clearly, without a doubt, that the chemistry that co-creates that experience or is created through that experience is created futuristically through what you're imagining for yourself. It's pre-creation, it's precognition. It's at the basis of every indigenous wisdom. And so I guess I'm always bringing it back to self-leadership, self-realization, self-revelation, self-cultivation, self-determination, self-consciousness, self-awareness, self-love, self-individualization, self-respect, self-dignity, self-empowerment, self-ownership, self-permission, self-authenticity.
Beautiful, Lisa. Amazing. Wow. This is, again, more wisdom than you will ever hear on any other panel, I think. Thank you so much. I did see Dr. Robin Rice and Dr. Brian Alman resonate a lot with what has been said. If you want to add something before we move on to the next question, feel free to unmute yourself.
Robin, would you like to add something? Because I would. Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
So, okay, adding to what Lisa just said, that we actually have learned, again, from people by asking questions and listening to them, that there are actually 48 hours in every day, 24 on the inside and 24 on the outside. So don't waste a moment. We all have those 86,400 moments a day, but there's 24 on the inside, 24 on the outside. And yeah, that's an important one for everybody to know, because when we're living in our outer world, whatever we're doing, we're also living simultaneously with our inner world. And what Robin, pointed to before, we are emotionally driven beings. That's what really drives us, how we feel. It's not just what we're thinking, because our feelings tend to impact what we're thinking, and our bodies follow our heart and our head. So another point that Lisa made that I think is important is that, we know that the past is behind us. Like when we drive a car or ride a bike or walking, or when we're driving, you see the rear view mirror, and we can see the past behind us, our ancestors, our generations, our development of our neural networks, our mind, body, heart, and soul. The past is always behind us. Now, if we drive staring into the rearview mirror all the time, we're going to bump and crash into a lot of things. So we want to check it out. We want to learn, see what's behind us, learn from our probably wiser than us ancestors. That's more than a probably. And be in the present. And the future is always in front of us. And we are, to Lisa's point, we're creating our own futures. And as Robin mentioned, through our choices, we're creating our life experiences. And in the work that I've done quite a bit before I met Dr. Folletti, and we've been working on the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, I worked with a very brilliant person that you would love, Lisa, who really learned a lot from indigenous people by the name of Milton Erickson. And Milton Erickson taught me a technique. I studied with him for 4 years, that there's something called age regression, where you go back in time and can communicate with people that are no longer here, or even your past self, people from generations ago. There's also another technique that we collaborated on together called age progression, where you can go out into the future and communicate with your future self and your future generations and have dialogues and go deep in those conversations, past, present, future, which can really inspire new ideas and new feelings and new experiences and new solutions that you would have never thought of on your own, unless you were dialogued and connected with your age regression and your past influencers, as well as your future influential experiences that you'll have. And that's important. Those are strategies, those are approaches. They all happen naturally anyway, but there's actual techniques you can learn to kind of empower yourself and learn those skills. And the last point I want to make about what Lisa said that's so important is, when people hear put yourself first, even like the oxygen mask, or just in everyday life, put yourself, that's selfish. Why would you put yourself first? That's not really a good thing. Well, what we've learned, again, from hundreds of thousands of very wise people from over 100 countries, is to put yourself first and everybody else you care about first right after that. There's no second. You don't have to put anybody else second. You have to put yourself second. Put yourself first. Make sure your self-care is there, and all those selves that Lisa put in, from the self-compassion to the self-love to the self-respect, to the self-advocacy, and here we go, right? All of those. Yes, put yourself first, and then everyone else in your community, in your family, in the world, globally, every country, put them first right after that, because you'll be in a much better place to be able to share and learn and grow together, because we all know the best relationships are the ones we grow in. And that takes us being there for ourselves as well as there for others, but no need to have a first and second. So it's not selfish. quite the opposite. It's actually selfless when you really get to it.
Beautiful. I love the harmony in this panel. Robin, would you like to chime in as well? Because I know this is a subject dear to your heart before we move on to the next question, which was a general one and ties into this one as well.
Yeah, I think what's important to understand, and Maura, it kind of goes back to the original quote that you gave us, that we have Paleolithic minds. And it is true that our brains are built in 3 separate sections. And the oldest part of our brain, we call the reptilian brain. And it really only deals with survival, fight, flight, fright, freeze, right? The ways in which we survive. And when we individually do not know that we've been traumatized or hurt or felt like our life was threatened, that lays down tracks within our brain that informs every other part of our existence on this planet. And so in all of these things we're talking about, honoring the wisdom from our past also means understanding the traumas, the ACEs, events that we've had that really create how we respond in the world. So psychological safety, understanding who we are from the most primitive place before we could even, for some of us, speak or experience the world in any kind of a cognitive way. We're living from trauma first. And they really believe that in today's world of accepting change, accepting the pace of change, accepting the things that are happening on the planet, helping us to get grounded within ourselves, putting on our oxygen mask first, in part means creating for ourselves a sense of psychological safety, because then we're capable of confronting change, experiencing change, adopting change, including things that are going on in the planet from a place of power instead of from a place of trauma or fear or being reactionary.
Nice.
Very nice. Right back at you. Absolutely beautiful. This actually brings us to our second question, which, as I said, is related to the first one. So the question is, as our capabilities continue expanding, how can we ensure that they uplift human dignity for all people? We spoke about it more on an individual level. How about a collective level? I would really encourage you to share your wisdom in short nuggets, please, because we have so much questions to go through, and I would really love to honor the questions in the chat as well. So yes, feel free to unmic. We don't have a specific order. Who wants to chime in?
Briefly, community is so important. As the other presenters have shared, we have a primitive need, a present, a future need for this sense of belonging, to really connect. So everything that the viewers, us, the presenters can do to empower people through community clinics, through community support, in every language that is needed. We need community. We need each other. We're not just emotionally driven beings, we're social beings. And reassurance and support just helps so much. Feeling, as we've mentioned earlier, unconditionally accepted means so much. So it's all of us, consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously, past, present, future. We all need to do everything we can to support each other's and support people in communities and people that might not have the same resources as others, to make sure that we are giving to people who will appreciate it more than you could ever realize. Yeah, till you're there and you see how appreciated it is. And when we go into communities and into clinics and into all these different places around the world, we ask questions. What do you feel would help you the most? Because that's where the best answers come from. It's not from us coming in with great ideas or past experience. It's asking them, what's really going to help your community? What's going to help here? And then really listening, and then cooperatively together taking action with their solutions, because that's what we've discovered. That's where the best answers come from.
Beautiful. Lisa, you also had a point to make, and then Robin, feel free to chime in.
Everybody
unmute
counts.
yourself.
Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody counts. Everybody matters. If that's overwhelming to you, then slow down and go inward. Go inward. You don't need to read books. You don't need to watch podcasts. You don't or listen to podcasts. Watch podcasts. Like I said earlier, your job is to develop your self-awareness. That can only be done. It not only be done. I don't want to be narrow here. Your primary relationship is with yourself. So that's what that saying is: put the oxygen mask on first. It doesn't mean selfishness. It means, or selflessness. It means being self-fulfilled, fulfillment, or being self-full, so that you can then do something. Yeah, if you try to help people and you're not in, and you don't put the mask on yourself, then you're going to suffocate, and you're not really going to be of much help to others. If you read everybody else's books and listen to everybody else's podcasts, and you do your best to memorize what everybody else is saying and then adjust your behavior according to that, you're not really going to help somebody. It's the same thing as like not putting the oxygen mask on. If you care for yourself and you develop your own relationship through respecting that your life force energy is what's governing the suit and animating it every day when you wake up, that has nothing to do with anybody else. And I know it's overwhelming sometimes, but it's just part of the journey to be overwhelmed sometimes, and to be distracted sometimes, and to suffer sometimes. It's just part of all these many faces of love, many aspects of love, many reflections of love, many shapes and forms and color and light and sounds. It's all imagery. It's all audio. It's how everything is created into physicality through space, making sound, sound creating color, color creating light, light creating, carrying this bandwidth of light, carrying consciousness. These are all technologies I'm talking about too, that what I just said, which is ancient wisdom, inspired us to create fiber optics, inspired us to create all kinds of technology that have both image and sound, from radio to TV to movie theaters to streaming video. It's all those ideas, those concepts came from the human imagination based on creation. So,
Lisa, just a quick question. I'm sorry to chime in and interrupt you like this shamelessly. However, I think I speak for many people here who are starting this journey of self-exploration. How does one go about going within? What does that even mean? I mean, I've been a meditator since many, many years. I have a little idea of what that means, but I'm guessing many people don't. How do you do that? How do you work on yourself? How do you be self-centered? And I know this is not proper English, but you know what I mean. Yes, how? Where would you start?
Well, first of all, there's nothing to fix, rescue, heal, or save. So there's nothing to work on. You don't, when I look at you, I look at everybody on the planet. I never encounter deficits. That's not what strikes me when the millions of people I've met in this lifetime, no exaggeration. What strikes me first is literally the sound of their life force energy, what's happening at the center of their being. That's what I experience first. So I never experienced people as having a deficit. I never experienced as anyone needing to do work or be worked on, because there really isn't anything to fix, rescue, heal, or save. That's kind of a fear-based duality type of thing. That's just, again, I'm talking from my experience. Something that I learned a long time ago, back in the 80s, was when I used to teach meditation, believe it or not, even in the 80s, I've been teaching it for 40 years now. Start with just the end of your nose. And the reason why you're told to start with putting all of your attention on the end of the nose, because the first thing you're going to learn is whether you can put all of your attention on the end of the nose, and how difficult that can be for some people because they're habitually and familiar with distraction. And so when you put your attention on the end of your nose and then inhale up your nose into your forehead and then into the center of your head, into your pineal and pituitary glands, you're activating this chemical bath, this sound bath, this chemical bath that is internal, and basically wakes you up, generates more consciousness and self-awareness. It's as simple as that. So if all you do is focus on the end of your nose, feeling your inhalation going up your nose into the center of your head, and you sit with that, and you give that your priority, you cultivate single-minded focus, where you let go of all distraction and you put all your attention on just inhalation and then exhaling through the mouth from the heart, emptying your heart out every time you exhale. If you practice that, eventually it becomes, you're familiar with it. It becomes a frequency. It becomes, through repetition, it becomes how you live your life. And so then you're just naturally noticing your inhales, and they're centering you because you're following them into the center of your head. And you notice your exhales, that you're emptying out your heart and, clearing this suit to create more space for more of your presence to pour into it, including what you've imagined futuristically. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Living your life becomes really easy. It's really not a complicated planet. And these suits are beautiful, but they're simple. It doesn't come with operating instructions, these suits, but it's really just what breathing and having your awareness on yourself while you're breathing, drinking, having your awareness on what you're drinking, and eating, having your awareness on what you're eating. And that's when you talk about sustainability and climate change, because when you have that consciousness and awareness, then you're creating change all around you, because you're demanding healthier food, healthier water. You're noticing what people are doing to the water, what people are doing to the food, what people are doing to the air.
Yeah, beautiful. Robin, I would also love to hear your wisdom on this before moving on to the next question, please.
I think the internal self-exploration, when we spend so much time thinking what we think of as thinking, because most of it is really recycling old thoughts, a place to get back to ourselves is to honor our body, the physical sense that we've been gifted. So when people talk about meditation or mindfulness even, we're still really talking about the idea of the mind, and we need to redefine that to what our ancestors always knew, that these senses that we bring, that we have, that we're gifted with, bring us back to this moment now. So it's breathing, feeling the senses of the air going in through your nostrils. Where does it go in your body? Being aware of the sound that you're hearing around you. What are you tasting? Everything about getting back to inside of our body first, then brings us to the ability to know who we really are. So it's getting that center and knowing how to do that. And I always think, so this may not sound appropriate, but I always tell people, just feel your butt in the chair. It's the first thing that will get you back to right now. And from there, you can start exploring, okay, right now, who am I? What do I need?
All right, very, very beautiful insight as always. This is the intersection of all this wisdom with technology. So can you help tech leaders nowadays navigate this whole landscape. And I'm grouping a couple of questions here. I just got a new one who came in. How can tech leaders start to build wisdom into their technological platforms and products? But you can answer a bit broader and also tell me how these tech leaders can reach communities and help them in a sustainable way. Who wants to go first? Oh, Lisa, I was just saying your name while being muted. Go ahead, please.
I wanted to go first because I want to, again, being the technologist on the panel, so when I was doing when I have people do technology pitches to me, which, back in starting the Climate Change Fund, it was all, being the chief technology officer, it was all potential climate change and sustainable technology. And nowadays it's metaverse and liquid neural nets and all kinds of other things that people pitch to me. I turned down 95% of the technical leaders and the technical innovators who were pitching us. And the reason for that is because it became really clear in the first paragraph how conscious that person was, how thoughtful they were. Something that's in the Indigenous world is understanding that the impact of every choice you make has 7 generations of impact. And so I always viewed things as in the 7 generations of this, how is this technology going to roll out? And so I sent everybody away with a list of things to do. I didn't say to anyone, you can't come back. I just sent them with a list and said, go inward, generate more consciousness around why are you doing this? Why do you think this technology is important? How do you imagine this technology is going to roll out for the next 7 generations? And how is it going to be used in its next 7 generational iterations? And I gave them this long list and sent them away. I maybe only had 2 people who ever came back. Everybody else kind of floated away to do their own thing. So as far as technology leadership, yes, you can build wisdom into your technology, but that's kind of too general of a question because it depends on what technology you're developing. But you are a technology. So if you're pitching somebody or you're leading a company, then it's really going inward yet again, going inward and being self-sustainable and being self-aware and self-conscious and bringing that to any discussion you're having with anybody on this planet, including cultivating your ability to listen deeply. You don't have to agree with everybody on the planet. Everyone's going to have their own point of view. But respecting everybody is a mirror to how much you respect yourself. Respecting other people's body is a mirror to how much you respect your own body and the body of the planet. Respecting somebody's communication and how they communicate is a mirror to how you communicate yourself and your own perception or your own judgment of how you perceive communication. And we can have a panel for 2 hours just debating the definition of certain words we all love to use, and it's going to be different for each one of us. But you are the crafter and the creator of your own experience. So turn to yourself to self-determine what wisdom means to you and how it applies to your technology and how it applies to your leadership abilities.
Beautiful. Respecting everybody is a mirror of how much you respect yourself. Wow. Again, speechless. Robin, would you like to chime in? Maybe also highlighting from your point of view how these technologies can reach communities more easily, how this all ties into climate. The mic is yours.
Yeah, I think right now we're in a place where the leadership needs to understand the fear factor that's out there with integrating new technologies. And then once the fear factor has been addressed, I think, in the leader and then within their organization, then we can start having real connection. But until the fear is addressed, which I think is where most people are with technology and with climate change, a sense of powerlessness, to use a word, learned helplessness. People feel like they have no power or ability to make a change in the planet, and that gives them a space of, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to sit back. So somehow creating within our systems a language that says, we know you're afraid. We know this could be scary for you to adopt to something that's very, very different or foreign to you. Let's all work on this together because it impacts all of us. Best to do that in community, best to do that human to human, harder on Zoom, harder on through using technology. We feel each other and connect to each other. So that would be my suggestion.
And I was muted again. Brian, I was going to say your name. Can't wait to hear your insights and wisdom for tech leaders and helping them come up with better tech solutions and connect better to communities in need of sustainable solutions. Go ahead. And now you are muted.
Being caring is so important. And of course, as we've all been agreeing, self-respect is the most important thing because it allows us to respect others. There's also another for tech leaders, having a lot of experience coaching, training tech leaders, that the 24-hour rule. Before you make any major decision, talk to other people about it, and that 24 hours will give you time to integrate the positive aspects, the difficulties, as Robin pointed out, the fears that you may have or others may have. So all big decisions, remember that 24-hour rule. And another point that's been made is that when people want to go inward, it really helps if you just close your eyes, because as soon as you close your eyes, you're not focused on others or what they're thinking about you or what you think they're thinking about you. You go inside. And I think of an example from a person at Kaiser that a person that became the physician of the year, Dr. Al Ray. He came to one of our presentations, Dr. Folletti's and mine at UCSD, at the faculty club at the medical school. And I shared a technique that I developed alongside the ACE study called the closed eye history. So when patients go in, members go in, they tell their history to the doctor. And I suggested that people try the closed eye history, sort of a go inward, meditative, connect with yourself. And he came back the following month at the next meeting saying that a patient he had seen every single week for 20 years, who kept coming in with new problems and new issues from head to toe, a new one she found a way to see him every single week. Obviously, you can guess he's a very caring medical doctor, very fine person, and he showed her care, but every week for 20 years as a high utilizer. And that's expensive for the program, but he's such a great guy. He continued to do it. He did the closed eye history. And in between the meetings, he did this with her. She told her story that he had not heard in 20 years. She did have a trauma as a kid, a car accident with a family. Her sister didn't make it. Her parents removed every picture and every memory of her sister from the walls. They couldn't deal with it. They couldn't talk about it. And this person held it in. Now she's decades later, grown-up sized kid, an adult, in a big body, a kid in a big body, so-called adult. And then she told him, with her eyes closed, this story about the daughter. And it's more gruesome than I'm saying, but that's enough information. And after that closed eye history, he didn't see her again for 6 months. Now, he's seen her every week for years and years and years. And then they went to once a year. So just by feeling accepted and being able to go inward, be meditative, don't worry about meditating, be meditative, and really feel heard and got to her trauma and hurt and grief out, the improvement medically, psychologically, physically, spiritually was remarkable. So that's an example of utilizing meditation as healers or healthcare practitioners in a way that you may not have thought of. And of course, how I came up with the closed eye history was a combination of Dr. Milton Erickson's influence and Dr. Vincent Folletti's influence and all of those thousands of participants that, Robin, you remember, as you were one of them. We learned so much, and that's how that approach got developed. So it's being meditative with yourself. And because people don't want to meditate, 20% of people meditate because their mind wanders too much and they don't get the results physically or mentally or emotionally that they expect fast enough. So they give up. So more important than meditating is learning how to be meditative. That's really what you want to get to.
Beautiful. Learning how to be meditative. Fantastic. Wow, we have so many questions, but just from these questions, I think many of them have already been answered, and I also want to be mindful of the time. I actually also had something I really wanted to share with regards to the last questions. A humble insight that I had, a very practical system on how to infuse more wisdom into the day-to-day technological developments for tech leaders. I want to talk very shortly about the system of spiral dynamics. It is a very simple system. I guess many of us have heard of it within the context of corporations and company structures. But not many people pause and think that this system, which is very awesome indeed, can offer a beautiful framework for understanding people's evolving values and worldviews applied in education. And education is something that indirectly we have spoken about today, but I think it's very important to address this. Applying spiral dynamics in education would mean aligning learning environments with students' cognitive development. So, for example, a tech-enhanced schooling solution could really enable exponential yet human-centric learning. And it may foster collaboration over competition via incentives and raise consciousness about, amongst others, interconnectedness. I think it nurtures a more holistic, adaptive, and empathetic learning experience for lifelong personal and collective evolution and development. And I guess we must ultimately draw inspiration from the intelligence of nature, as suggested by Professor Leen Gorissen, a Belgian innovation biologist, in order to create a society on a more human and not per se on a tech-centric scale. So that was my little insight before we end this panel with one last question. It is an open question, since we had a very free-flowing conversation today, which I'm very happy about. It is an open question to all of you. What wisdom would you like to leave us with? It can be very short, just to close this panel. Or what are your biggest takeaways of the discussion today? Yes, what would you like to tell our listeners as your final words for this panel? I'm looking at Robin right now because she has a beautiful smile. Go ahead.
myself. The words of wisdom are that change doesn't have to be scary. So in adopting new things, there are ways in which we can bring ourselves into alignment with peace and centeredness and love, and then share that wisdom with the rest of the world, and we can together create any change that we want in the planet.
We can come together and create any change. Oh, you are muted. Did you want to add something, Robin? Go
No,
ahead.
I just wanted to, and get a cat. Have a cat sit on your lap. That helps.
Oh, I love this. I have one right behind me. Check. Fantastic. Beautiful. Brian, I see you are unmuted. What are your final words of wisdom?
Yes. Well, I love strategies, techniques, methods that work, because from the study and from all the people, how can you help me? What can I keep doing? What's next? So, we've tested and clinically proven all of these for the Enlighten app. And I want to finish with one of my favorite techniques, because I love to give people takeaways and things that they can practice on their own. This is incredibly simple, incredibly powerful. I would say a technique that can help people go deeper into meditation than they maybe have ever gone. Mindfulness, guided imagery, self-hypnosis, any of those. And I will share the credit for this technique with hundreds of thousands of people that have tried it and given me feedback and helped me to develop it, to start off with something really complicated and make it really simple. Okay. So we're breathing anyway. So there's 0 steps. And on your exhales, say your own name to yourself, not out loud, just to yourself. And say your own name on your exhales for 5 or 10 breaths. If you do this for 5 minutes, you'll go deeper into meditation than you probably have ever gone in your life or ever even imagined. You can say your first name. You can say your first and last name. You can say your first, middle, and last name. Be creative, be playful, do whatever you like. Try them all. And on your exhales, just say your own name to yourself. And within moments, you will be much more relaxed, much more at ease. Now, I've taught this to NFL place kickers with 70,000 people screaming, miss it. I've taught this to Olympic athletes. I've taught this to people, as Robin knows, at Kaiser, from morbidly obese to anorexic to bulimic to addicted to just about everything ever imaginable. So that's the takeaway. That's the how-to. That's the, okay, what's next? How can I practice all this wisdom that we've been sharing together from Lisa, Robin, and Maura, from you as well, and from Christina, who set all this up, and Carlos, who's supporting us. That would be the gift that we can give to ourselves. And that's my last point.
Thank you so much, Brian. Very helpful indeed. And it's very calming. It's very peaceful. I've tried it. So amazing. The last words are for you, Lisa. What are the last words of wisdom that you wish to share on this panel?
It's up to you whether you want to be afraid of technology and afraid of the future. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Why am I afraid? Break it into something digestible, easily digestible for yourself. As you start to hear words like liquid neural network and neuromorphic computing, just break it into, what is it really about? Our understanding of space is growing. Our understanding of liquid is growing. Our understanding of the role water plays in our body is growing. Our understanding of mind, body, spirit is growing. And so it's influencing the direction we evolve our technologies. It doesn't mean our technologies are mechanical in nature. It's the software that's evolutionary. They're all organic. Any kind of hardware will disintegrate if you stick it outside in the wind and the rain and the desert long enough. And software does outlive us. I realized when I worked on genetic algorithms back in the 90s that what I was coding was going to live longer than me, and that people were going to build on it. And so you set it free and it gets built on. But, you know, you learn to trust yourself. And if each person self-cultivates their own trust of themselves, then you start to trust your choices. You start to be trustworthy. You start to earn people's trust. And pretty soon you're trusting. And you're just finding you're not afraid anymore. And there's nothing to be afraid of, because of course we're going to learn more about our sun and solar energy and our moon and lunar energy and our earth. The earth's body is gazillions of years old. The human body right now, if we're lucky, it lasts 100 years. The body we live on, called the earth, which hosts and supports all of this life, it's millions of years old. So, you know, we're a spark of intelligence and a spark of a body that's temporal in nature, which means anything you may be worried about, it's temporary. And so if it's consuming you, if certain feelings are consuming you, if certain thoughts are consuming you, then yeah, change your frequency, meaning what you frequent, what you frequently are reading, what you frequently are eating, what you frequently are watching, what you're frequently conversing about. Maybe change what you're frequently doing, and that changes your frequency. That opens up other options, because we're living in the age of options. The next decade, everything's changing. You know, our poles are shifting. Energy is moving from north to south. The dynamics are moving economically from north to south. There's lots of stuff going on. But, you know, a lot of it was preordained, meaning that our ancestors kind of left these records of things they thought were going to happen. I don't know. But the bottom line is navigating your own personal fear. Let everybody else alone to navigate their own personal fear. If you want to be fearful, great. If you don't want to be fearful, great. It's just an experience. It's temporary in nature. Just do your, you know, I ask myself every day, am I doing my best? Like when I go to the grocery store, I say, am I doing my best? When I'm loading my grocery cart up, I go to the farmer's market, am I doing my best? I take my time, pick out my vegetables. Am I buying the best water? I research companies. I don't vote in the US. I'm not a US citizen. But I vote with my money. And so, you know, you just pay attention to yourself. And that's called self-respect. And you will build up a new frequency of trusting yourself and trust in yourself. And pretty soon it will emanate into trusting what's happening in the world. It won't be so scary anymore. It's really just us exploring our resources and this planet that's hosting us, and how things are organized, our authentic intelligence.
I'm always speechless after your interventions, Lisa. I don't even know how to summarize this. It hit me energetically or something. But beautiful. That's all I can muster the courage to say. Wow,
I think
amazing.
Title for me, technology interventionist.
Beautiful. Yes, as we conclude this thought-provoking expedition through the intersection of humanity and technology, let's not forget that the future isn't just a destination. It's a journey of profound self-discovery. And I guess this is the best I can summarize this panel as. Don't forget that this is not the end of this amazing Tech Leadership Lab Summit. This only marks the end of part 1 on this last day. We will be back in 2 hours here, same place, for the grand finale, which will be a round table summarizing the whole summit for you. I will also be part of that panel. In the meantime, while you wait, we, of course, could not accept boredom from you. So we came up with a really nice quiz and a survey that you can take with regards to this topic, so stay tuned for that one as well. And another last thing I wanted to say is that, well, I wanted to thank you all. This is more than I could ever hope for. We have received so much wisdom. I need to review my notes and meditate on this and try to infuse all this wisdom, I guess. It was very inspiring indeed. As Yangbo says in the comments, I agree. I want to thank you, my dear panelists, Dr. Brian Alman, thank you so much. Dr. Robin Rice, thank you. And Lisa Atkins, thank you so much. Atkinson, sorry, what am I saying? It is the end of the panel. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you to all the viewers for being with us, for all your awesome comments and questions, and for supporting us. I am left without words, truly, which is not ideal for a moderator, so I'm doing my best here. I'm going to end this first part here, leaving you with a nice video to watch, and I will see you all again in 2 hours. See you soon. Bye-bye.
In a world yearning for change, there exists a community of visionaries and innovators, united by a common goal: to solve Earth's biggest challenges. From climate action to quality education, we're tackling all 17 Sustainable Development Goals reassembled as 10. We embody sustainability, unity, and empathy. Our character and reliability shine as beacons of hope. As role models for future generations, we're building a world where wisdom and consciousness rise, harmonizing life with nature and all species. Join us. Together, let's create a balanced, sustainable future for all.